Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording this meeting, please notify the chairman. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023 extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 20, until June 30th, 2027, this meeting of the Chatham Board of Health is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for the order. A reminder that people who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 940-445-779#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link posted on the agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, Channel 8 and 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting in the town's website as soon as possible, and I'll turn it over to the chairman.
Thank you. This is the June 2nd meeting of the Board of Health. It shall be the policy of this board to conduct its meetings under the open meetings laws so as to encourage public participation whenever time permits and as part of agenda item discussions. So we have 4 items on the agenda today, but first let's establish a quorum, and when I call your name, please please say present. Harold Boyce.
Here.
John Beckley.
Present.
Ron Broman.
Here.
Richard Edwards.
Present.
Noble Hanson present. That's our quorum. And then Joanna Kale is our alternate.
Present.
Present. Okay. First on the agenda is a modified definitive subdivision plan review for Susan Shepherd and Barry Payne, Evergreen Lane, Clark Engineering LLC, and Mr. Clark is here to present the case for us.
Good afternoon, David Clark, Clark Engineering, on behalf of Susan Shepherd and Barry Payne. There was a re-subdivision done on Evergreen Lane 22 years ago, and all it did was create one more lot in that subdivision. At that time, the planning board wanted road improvements, including widening the road to 16 feet, and so the lot sat there without those conditions being fulfilled. Susan Shepherd and Barry Payne purchased the property. In order to get a building permit, they have to satisfy the planning board conditions of road construction. So they've gone back to the planning board informally about reducing the road construction requirements, and that's what the modification's all about. So it is basically reopening the subdivision public hearing process with the planning board to modify their approval to include less road improvements. So we're going from 16 feet of pavement down to the 12 feet that's there now, and some drainage improvements have to be put in. So there's no changes to the lot, so the number of lots in the subdivision, it's just road construction requirements are changing. And pursuant to the subdivision control law, Board of Health gets a copy of the application as with any standard subdivision.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the Board of Health approved the subdivision in 2004, and you said none of the lot lines have changed.
No lot lines have changed.
Right, so it's all road improvement.
Yep. And there's no changes to the Board of Health requirements that the lot has to be served by municipal water. There's really no changes from what the Board of Health would see.
Are these vacant lots right now?
They're all developed except the one lot that was created.
Okay.
And back 2002, 2003, something like that.
Does that vacant lot, does that have a stub on 28, or are they going to do
It does. It's the only lot that does have a stub on 28.
Okay.
But I've been informed that in the next 5 years, I think the town is trying to, or the DPW is trying to include this entire subdivision in one of the next phases because it's so small.
Okay.
And so hopefully, before a house gets built, There will be municipal sewer.
So do they anticipate to connect on the 28th side, or will they add another stub when
Well,
they go
it'll
down
probably have a
to
stub
Ivy?
off of Evergreen.
Or Evergreen, I
Towns- Yeah,
apologize.
so there is a T off the main, the sewer main on 28 that goes into the road and stops. It just needs to be continued all the way up the hill to service all the lots.
Okay,
To take advantage of the stub that was provided for this lot means that we would have to disturb probably almost 300 feet of forest
Yeah.
just to put a sewer line in, to connect this lot. And all the other municipal services would be coming in from the panhandle portion of the lot. So it doesn't make sense to utilize that stub for this lot, unfortunately.
yeah, so an additional stub will be added when they go down.
And all that work would be
Evergreen.
within 100 feet of the wetland.
Okay, is there an anticipated time frame on the Evergreen, or is that going to
Oh,
be the
for
next
building?
phase? For the
Oh, the
stu- for
sewer?
the sewer, yes.
Could be 3 years, could be 5.
5, okay, so it's in the design period, okay.
Lot 1A, that home that's built already has its own septic system?
Yes.
In place? And then, when we approve, or if we approve the subdivision, then you'll be coming back for the septic system plan for the house construction on 1B?
It would just be a standard filing would be, so unless they ask for an additional bedroom, I think it's a 30,000 square foot lot, so they might ask for a fourth with IA, but,
Or it'll go to Judy,
Yeah.
Health Department?
yeah.
Yes.
And then I just had, are any other questions on the board? Right. The lot line for 1B, it goes from, apparently, it goes from the road, but does it go all the way back to the abandoned cranberry bog?
No, that's all town-owned land.
So there looks like a lot line from this one concrete block there, post.
The westerly property line of Lot 1B runs perpendicular to Route 28.
Right. But it looks very, very narrow. Is that going to?
Pardon me?
It looks very, very narrow, what you
Oh,
see.
it's a panhandle lot, so the buildable portion of the lot is behind Lot 1A. It's not even shown on the plan 'cause it's
Okay,
so far
right.
away.
Because what you can see on this plot plan, it doesn't look buildable. Okay, I understand. Okay, yeah, Judy has reviewed this and recommended for approval, and the septic system will come back for the health board anyway. So any other questions or comments? And so we're really just affirming a definitive sub approved in 2004. So maybe I can get
So I'll move that we approve this modification of the subdivision.
and Ron a second. And then any input from the public?
Nothing online.
Okay. And then I'll go ahead and take a voice vote. All in favor say yes. Carol Boyce?
Yes.
John Beckley?
Yes.
Ron Broman?
Yes.
Dick Edwards?
Yes.
Noble Hanson says yes, so that is approved.
Thank you.
Bada bing.
Okay. And now, second on the agenda is a discussion of a short-term rental registration sort of report and update that Judy has provided us, and you should have it in the packet, but basically, it's been a year since the short-term rental really got rolling with Karen Shemawaza, the inspector and administrator of the program, doing the work. And I won't read the whole thing, but I can review it. So there are 48 unregistered properties that have been contacted regarding short-term rental registration. And they've been sent letters. And what the Health Department and Judy are requesting is that they get our okay that they send a final notice letter to all 48 property owners with a clear registration deadline. And if they fail to make that deadline, they would be required to appear before the Board of Health at a specific date. And I think we can sort of discuss that, but we'll probably go ahead and vote just to give her backup.
So these 48 properties have been identified because people have found listings in real estate sites? So somebody's been going through listings for Chatham
Yes.
and has discovered 48 listings.
Yes.
18 of them with 2024 reviews. What does that mean?
So that is basically that on whatever website they're on, Airbnb, VRBO, that people have stayed there and left reviews on their stay.
Indicating it's an
Indicating.
active rental.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And then that's why Karen separated it between reviews and not reviews, because if there's no reviews, I mean, it's still an active listing on that site, but, you know, with no active reviews, you don't know 100%.
So 2 or more letters have been sent, and what did it say in those letters? Did it say you must appear before the Board of Health?
not
What,
yet.
what did it say? You've been identified as someone who is renting a property illegally because you don't have you haven't filed a registration. What did the letter say?
That's my understanding. We can get that verbiage from Karen, who is the one sending those out.
Any idea what?
Roughly what you said, yeah. Yeah, just that they're aware that they are being rented or listed and that they don't have an active permit to do so.
And then did it say you are hereby ordered to get a registration, or what was the
Well, that's,
final paragraph of the letter? When it said, we have identified that you're renting this, you have not registered the property, then what did it say?
I
You
don't
must-
know what that previous letter said, but I do know that the idea of this is to be able to bring them in front of the Board of Health so that we can,
I
The
know
next
what-
question is, if we bring them before the Board of Health and we find that they're in violation, that they continue to rent and and have not registered,
No.
what are our options in terms of enforcement?
with that, we would have to proceed with town council. We
And
Do
have
we
we
have
asked
the,
town council?
we
what-
can
we
do an
have the authority
administrative,
to find them.
we can leverage an administrative penalty if we wish, is
To my
understanding.
knowledge, yes, I believe that was in the rental regulation.
Because we wouldn't want this to turn into another Mill Hill Road fiasco, that 17 years later, we're still sitting here saying,
Right.
well, we've had them here, and they said, I'm just a poor person that
Right.
rents my house, and I can't afford these registration fees. And then, you know, a year later, they come back and say the same thing. There has to be some teeth.
Yes.
Yeah.
My question is, if I have an active listing, but I'm not actually renting it, am I in violation of the regulation?
Why would
No.
it be an active listing if you're not planning on renting it?
Planning on could be different. Somebody could say that we filled in the paperwork, we know we're registered to rent, but we're not actively renting now. Is that owner in violation of our regulation?
Technically, no, because I believe, we can get, this is kind of Karen's expertise, she's the short-term rental administrator, but to my knowledge, it isn't, because if you don't rent it, if you rent it for under 14 days a year, the state determines that as not needing a registration.
Oh, really?
I believe that's what it is.
I think so too. And the other thing is, I know she's come across some that say they're no longer renting. She requires something in writing from them, so we can put it in the file saying, remove them. And I think there is a time frame when she sends those letters out, time frame to respond. You have 10 days to respond and get your registration done. But they're mostly ignoring that.
And our rule does not say anything about if you only rent it for 1 week a year, you don't have to register it, does it?
I'd have to double check that.
I don't remember anything in our
I thought it was
regulation.
anything under 30 days. What,
Yeah, I don't know offhand the answer to that question.
I know year-round you don't, anything under
No, no.
30 days.
But
I think-
That's short-term, but we never said you can do short-term rentals once a year without doing a registration. I mean, the state may say that, but we didn't say
Top of
that.
my head,
I don't think it's in our regulation.
yeah.
But the question is, if you list your home for rent on a public site and you're trying to actively rent it, but you don't have a renter yet, and you haven't registered, are you in violation of our short-term rental agreement?
That's what,
Which I would hope they would be, but I think that would be a question. But active listings means it's one that's currently there?
yes.
So
You can look it up.
presumably, they're trying to rent for this summer.
Because
You could assume that.
my inclination is to find them, but I don't want to lose that on the technicality that they can then say, oh, we did the paperwork to lease, to rent, but we haven't ever rented it, and so we're not in violation of any regulation.
Yeah.
So,
These 18 that have reviews,
well, if they have a
clearly
reviews,
rent- have
that's
clearly
evidence,
rented it.
that's evidence of having.
But I think they
been
need to provide something that they're not registering in order to say, okay, you don't have to. They need to submit it and say, I'm no longer renting it, or at least respond to the letter.
And we also have to make sure that an owner doesn't disregard compliance and simply say, I'll pay the penalty. In other words, it's not worth my trouble. If I pay $300 penalty a year, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to get to that point where they can just,
Yeah.
But I mean, it's presumed if they come before the board that one option would be to revoke their ability to get a short-term rental registration and be able to rent it ever.
I don't, do we have that authority? I don't
I
know.
would think so. But I think,
I think that's
When they
stated
sent
in
the
our
letter to-
regulation, that
think
that
so, too. I think you can
would
revoke it.
lose your registration, and therefore you cannot rent. But
Legally.
if you go ahead and rent anyway,
Then we
then
have,
the only option is to have the police go out there and evict the people that are in the house.
We would have to proceed with town council on how to act on that if
I think
it
what you'd
comes.
end up doing is filing an administrative penalty for each and every day that they continue to, make it so that it hurts.
Yes.
It would have to be
Financially.
more than the rental, which can be $5,000 a week.
Right.
So the penalty would have to be $1,000 a day.
We'd have to look in our regulation to see, we have a prescribed penalty for first
Yeah,
and second
it's not gonna be
offenders.
$1,000.
And it's not gonna be that much, but
But that's what it would have to be.
yes.
do we know, did Karen send her previous letters out by registered mail?
Yes,
So we have proof of service.
yes.
Okay, well, I think the issue before us, though, is whether we want to give our approval to the Health Department
Yes.
to send a final notice letter to all 48 property owners with a clear registration deadline and with, informing them that failure to respond means they'll have to appear before the Board of Health. And then I think we can work out a lot of the issues we're raising in preparation for that, if they're coming.
And they may not show up,
But then they
too.
wouldn't show up.
Right.
So then you need you'd have to have another sentence in it, that if you do not appear for this, then
It's,
you will start accruing fines.
it's like a show cause hearing. We require them to come in and notify us, them or a representative present. I don't,
And if they ignore it, what happens?
We proceed.
But do we have to specify the actual penalty? Can
Mr.
it be-
McGrath
can it
has
be-
ignored the show
Can it be by our discretion, what we do when they appear here?
I'm pretty sure I would check with Judy, but I'm pretty sure it's in our regulation that you have that authority.
Well,
Well, yeah, okay,
have to
before the Board of Health, and
she
what,
says.
some
And
general clause about, with the penalty based on the board's discretion at that time, at that hearing, or failure to show?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you could go so far as to say that the reason for this is to deal with the septic system being overused, and if you do not show up, then we will declare your septic system failed.
Well, that's always.
And the house cannot be occupied.
Yeah. And just
All right.
for clarification.
I don't think we have enough knowledge of the subtleties here.
Yes.
To find our own path. So I'm going to say that I would make a motion that we endorse the plan set forth in Judy's memo of May 28th for her and Karen to proceed with their plan to,
Begin the
to
steps.
pursue better compliance on the part of these 48 properties.
Yes.
And then we can have other conversations on another day,
Yeah.
And to-
if need
And
be.
to Dick's thought, and to send them out in a timely manner. Presumably, this will move right ahead.
Yeah.
Are we assuming that of these 94 letters that have been sent, there have been no replies?
So to my knowledge is that the numbers were much higher prior to her sending letters, and she had compliance after they received the letters, and a lot of people did sign up. And just for clarification, the 48 unregistered properties, to my knowledge, is also that, a lot of the people own multiple properties. So it's not 48 people, it's 48 properties which are owned by, there's some people who own 4 or 5 properties, so.
But the big picture is the vast, vast majority of short-term rental properties in Chatham right now are properly licensed and operating within the scope of our regulations. And this represents a small number.
And she's.
Well, I would
right.
say,
don't know that.
I would say, we probably don't know how many people are renting and don't list and just have repeat renters every summer and they collect the money. I mean, there's ways to get around it. So there's probably are some that don't come up at all on the radar.
Right.
And we don't know that the people who have registered are following the rules. Because I know that the house next to me has 3 bedrooms and there were 10 cars in the driveway 2 weeks ago.
She's done.
That's a whole different
Well,
question.
I mean.
I'm talking about compliance
Well,
with the.
compliance means
with the
complying
requirement to
with
register.
Well, I think
regulation.
that would be a question for Karen, because I think she is inspecting and she's sort of following along. We don't really know all of that.
This is
But I
gonna
think
take
it's more-
years.
It's more than just doing nothing. She's in charge, and
Right.
I think she inspects them all.
Yeah, she's done.
That's the goal, but she's not going to get to them all in every single year.
She's not driving out there to count how many people are in the properties. I mean, if it's a 2-bedroom house and they're allowed to have 6 people, she's not driving out there at 9 o'clock at night and saying, oh, there's 10 cars in the driveway. These people are not.
No. But
Following the
does she
regulation.
respond to a neighbor complaint?
Yes.
I think she
That would be the most common way for some interaction to occur, would be a complaint from the neighbor that there are 6 cars parked on the lawn. And I think she does some of that.
She does, and she also goes in the house too, has appointments to go in there, and.
And does a
she's come
walkthrough.
Yep, does a walkthrough, counts the bedrooms. She's found quite a few,
But she has to do it by appointment because of
She does.
privacy and.
yes.
They gotta put the bed away and they gotta,
Okay, so,
beds fold into the wall, right?
but I think our step today would be to get this process started.
Authorize
Maybe
it.
with an extra sentence about penalties, but does someone want to make a motion and get?
Well, I already did make a motion
Okay.
that we approve the proposed plan.
I'll
Anything
second
about
it.
penalty or
Well,
not
I
a-
think we should add about the penalty.
at the discretion of the board, or?
With the with the
Will result in
additional requirement that the penalty.
Appearance
be-
before the Board of Health, and Board of Health uses
Failure
its
to appear
discretion.
before the Board of Health will result in
Penalty.
penalties being assessed.
We can discuss what it is at a later time.
Because these are people who've already ignored 94 letters.
Right.
What makes you think they're gonna come?
Well, then maybe they just want to have a party.
Well, I actually think when you say you may have to appear before the Board of Health, my past experience is that usually is a stimulus that gets people to call and settle
And
up
take it seriously.
and- with other things,
Okay.
you know. Okay, would anybody second that?
I second.
Second, okay, and then any input from the public?
Nothing online.
There's no public.
DL somebody? No. Okay, then I'll take a voice vote. All in favor, say yes when I call your name. Carol Boyce,
Yes.
John Beckley.
Yes.
Ron Broman,
Yes.
Dick Edwards.
Yes.
And Noble Hanson, yes. Okay. So we'll get that going, and then if Karen and Judy have some further question about what we can talk about.
Yeah, I can get more information on the language and everything.
Okay, but the big thing there is short-term rental registration, 1 year. It's going pretty well. She's got
is.
like close to 1,000 people, and
It's wonderful.
we've got something going like other towns around us have, so it's a huge change from before.
Yes.
And from all I've heard, she's been doing a really good job.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay,
Let me ask one more question. If, going forward, we're not happy with some of these responses, if we called Airbnb.com and said, this is the Chatham Board of Health, and you are illegally listing a property that is not registered to rent in Chatham, and you must withdraw that listing, what would happen?
She's had them change the bedroom count on some of those
I think that was by the
owners.
owners. I believe some other towns have brought that up. I don't know if they were Massachusetts town, Cape Cod towns, what they were, and I don't think Airbnb will take those off.
You don't think they'll take
I
them
don't
off?
think
They'll
they
just
take them
complete-
off.
They'll continue to have illegal listings.
I think that's what the answer was, but we can double check on that.
Well, the owner is paying to have it
Yeah,
listed.
yeah.
that would be a legal thing. My guess is that Airbnb doesn't take responsibility for what's in the listing. That's your
That's-
responsibility. They
yeah.
just list it. That's probably what they do, but that would be, we
Yeah,
can ask
we can
Judy
check on
about
that as well.
She may have some more information, or we can get a legal opinion, I guess. All right, next, okay, third on the agenda is a continued discussion and update on the transfer facilities registration application and our letter to the
Regulations.
select board.
Yep.
And so we have a copy of a revision of a letter to the select board that we had a copy of at the last meeting. And I had one question. Has Judy sent this already to the select board?
I think she did last week,
Because
It's dated,
because it has to be on their June 10th next week.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
did they take it up?
No,
No,
June
June
10th,
10th it's going to be.
June 10th.
which means next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow.
Yes.
So we should all go to the select board.
Well, Ken, is a good question. How many of us can just be sitting in the audience at the select board meeting representing, talking about,
I think you all can.
can we, does it become a quorum where it's a meeting for us and all that?
I really don't know.
But I think if you look at the letter and what's going to happen, I think some input from the Board of Health at that meeting will, and I'm sure Judy will be there, will probably be needed to clarify
They
things.
invited you to go, Noble,
They
as
haven't
the
invited
board
me,
chair?
no. I mean,
But Judy probably clearly would be there. Okay.
Yeah. And
They
we'll
should-
check with
they
Judy
should
tomorrow,
thank
but
the
you should
board.
probably go at the least.
yeah, right. Okay, but I think I will try to be there.
That's why you get
Because I
$3.
think, because I think it needs some clarification. So, now, did everyone get a chance to look at this? But this letter basically is asking the select board to increase
Make
the
more money.
commercial hauler waste charge
Yes.
up to the level of surrounding towns. It's about half of the surrounding towns. Harwich, which runs a regional transfer center for some reason, is about twice the charge of Chatham. So there's a charging fee incentive for someone to dump in Chatham instead of another town.
Yes.
Brewster does not accept any commercial haulers dumping in their transfer station.
Wow.
Mr. Faley is bringing a larger proposal before the select board about fees. But one concern I would have is that our interest in the commercial waste hauler fee being increased may get lost in a lot of other things. He wants to increase fees for appropriately mattresses and sofas and a lot of things that a resident would pay for. This is something the commercial hauler pays for, so it's a little different. They may look at it different, I don't know. So it's worth that clarification. But that's the main reason for this letter and for us presenting our opinion before the select board. But it also goes on to go over the two other things that we're doing. One is Judy is strengthening the commercial haulers registration form with an attestation section saying that you're not dumping other towns' trash at Chatham and you're not mixing it with other towns.
Correct.
And Judy can do that on her own authority,
Yeah,
is my understanding.
yeah.
She can do that on her own authority, and that renewal is, I think, December.
Yes.
So that's all gonna happen, and it's like five different statements. It says that they have read the regulations, the waste disposal regulations, which we actually write, who knew? And they'll abide by them, and then no trash from other towns. And that's Judy can do on her own. The third thing is amending, a small amendment of our waste regulations, which, and Dick has brought this up before, is that the driver of the garbage truck, when they're getting weighed, they hop out, they go over to the gatehouse, they sign a form that says, attesting the fact that that trash is all just from Chatham.
Correct.
Not that we're trying to pin it on the driver, but the driver would quickly pass that up to his employer, and the employer can adjust the routes. That's what Mr. Faley said, they could just adjust the routes to make sure they're doing it right. John?
This is based on the assumption, which I think is valid, that the driver of that truck that appears has just gone around and collected the garbage into that truck. So he is aware of where the garbage has come from.
Right.
So when he attests there, right there and then he has firsthand knowledge
Right.
of what he's attesting to.
And then the pressure's on him to have his employer adjust the routes if he's being told to do that. Yeah, it was your idea, actually, not Dick's. It was
Right.
at the last meeting. So that would require
I think
public
that's-
hearing, a change of the regulation and that process.
I think that would tighten it up very nicely.
And Mr. Faley had some concern that in the summer, it might be real busy and having the driver get out and walk 15 feet to the gatehouse and check a sheet and then back to the truck would slow things down. But I don't think reasonably it would that much.
They'd have to go on the waiter first, though, right? That's
Yeah, they're right next to it.
right next to each other.
And when they redo the next section of the transfer station, they're gonna move the weight thing right next to the gatehouse. So they'll be right there, be even easier.
Okay.
So anyway, those
A lot
are
of
things
places.
we're doing, but that's also
they just
communicated.
go Open the window to the truck and they lean, because a lot of trucks have to pay according to what their weight is. So many places, you roll the window of the truck down, you lean out, and the guy's right there looking at the scale. So that.
But the
that may
difference-
be the way it is. But how many commercial garbage hauler trucks come into the transfer station every day?
I don't know that.
I mean,
That
are we
would be a
talking-
question for Rob. I think it
I
was,
think we
or
brought
eight?
it up last week.
We asked
Yeah.
Mr.
Like
Faley,
10, I think.
It was 6 or 8.
it was
We're not
around
talking
that
about
number. I
50.
just don't know exactly.
you talking about a day?
Well, a day, I'm not
Or
sure,
week.
but I know we licensed.
But the other thing was how many tons, when they empty their whole garbage truck, how many tons of garbage? But I think it's several. So it's $90 difference between our fee and the surrounding town, and if they've got several tons with each load and they're doing it 5 times a week, for them, it's real money
Yeah.
that they're saving. So there's an incentive, that's the thing.
Yes.
So this is June 10th.
Okay.
Also, Judy is still working with Kerry from Barnstable County and Rob to update the solid waste regulation.
To make them get out of the truck and
Well,
the
no,
attestation.
any changes in the regulation. Remember, she was working with Kerry from the
Oh,
county.
some more global things.
Yes,
So when
he
we have our
oversees-
public hearing to change
Right.
this one part, there'll be some other things in there as
Right,
well.
because she's involved with the whole Cape Carrie.
Right, Carrie,
from-
she
yeah,
talked to us,
Carrie,
I call her
yeah.
the trash lady, she
Yeah.
knows everything.
So she's working with Judy, and Judy and Rob Faley and other staff to update that regulation.
So, okay, so this letter has already been sent, so we don't have to, it's all done. But I think June 10th, I think our input to clarify things, depending on how the discussion goes, might be needed, actually. And to me, but we're kind of in the weeds here, maybe, it seems pretty clear that they would boost at least the trash per ton fee up to the surrounding towns. That's pretty
Absolutely.
clear.
Yes,
Right now, it does not even cover the outhaul costs, what they call the next stage.
so,
Okay. Any input from the public on the transfer station letter? What we're doing there? Okay,
Nothing online.
all righty. Any other questions from the board?
Nope.
I think yeah,
So are you going to vote to support the letter?
oh, it's already out, but we can vote to
Yeah,
support. Yeah, okay, can we take a vote to support the letter as written?
sure, so move.
Second?
Okay, and then I'm supposed to take a voice vote on everything. I mean, individual vote. Can I call your name, say yes? Carol Boyce?
Yes.
John Beckley?
Yes.
Ron Broman?
Yes.
Dick Edwards?
Yes.
Noble Hanson, yes. Okay. All right, so that's, and then we have the application forms done, and then we're working on the public hearing to modify the regulations. All right. 4, continue discussion and review of a revised bedroom definition. So this is something that we've been working on, not as long as Mill Hill, I don't think, but, and I'll just kind of review. So Judy, I had a copy of her policy for determining bedroom numbers, I think at our last meeting. And she has, in our packet, given a proposal which basically uses as a template the town of Hingham guideline for determining bedrooms and other rooms in residential dwellings served by septic systems. It sounds like that town has the same kind of issues and problems we have, and they've addressed it pretty well. And she's kind of used that as a template to put a policy for us to consider. And one question I have is, where would this policy be? Would this be also a change in the nitrogen loading regulation, which would go through a public hearing?
So we have to check with town council. Judy was going to check with them to see if we can move this forward as a standalone policy or if it has to be its own regulation. Obviously, they're changed differently, whether it's a policy or regulation, so we have to see if we have the ability to do
Regulation
that.
now has some statement about bedroom counts.
Yes.
So basically, what we'd be doing sounds like we would be replacing what's there with this statement.
More or less striking it and
So it's
then
probably gonna have to
stand
be
alone.
a regulation change. But anyway,
Yes.
yeah, so probably that's, we can, but I think, and this is something that we're gonna work on over time, it's not gonna be right away, but I mean, my own opinion, this is a pretty good start, but I'm sure there are questions and issues with the whole thing, and so I'd just open it up for anybody who has input, or,
I have a question.
yeah.
I don't like the open concept, counting it as one room. So if you have a house that has the open concept and you've got a kitchen, living room, dining room, but it's all open, you're counting it as one room. Then they happen to have 4 bedrooms and a family room. So technically, they only have 6 rooms.
Yeah.
So they should only be allowed 3 bedrooms, but they have 4.
Yeah, we run into that sometimes, not a lot, and when we see it, it's typically only dining room, kitchen, or dining room, yeah, kitchen. Well, we'll see those, and then typically there's some sort of separation with a living room where we can count that separately. There is another town on Cape, I don't know which one it is, that will do it by square footage, so we can look into the way they do that.
Okay.
If a single room is over say 400 square feet, they would count that as X amount of rooms. So we can look into that possibility, but
So are you talking about the size of a room?
No, but
Bedroom, with
you have an open concept.
an open, the great room in the first floor?
You got a kitchen,
Yeah.
dining room or dining area. You've got a living room, and there's nothing breaking it up.
Right.
But and so you're only counting that as one room.
So this gets to not bedroom, but the total house room count, which can be
Right.
important.
Yes.
Yes.
Right, but you're only counting it as one. So then they bring in 4 bedrooms and a family room and maybe a sewing room and they end up with 6 rooms for the whole house, but technically they really have more.
Because of the great room, yeah. Well, they try to address it here, open concept, where the large space has a small dividing wall, half wall, pillars, built-in cabinetry or other architectural features that protrude into the space or obstructs normal movement within the space and produces a defined visual demarcation shall be considered for Title V purposes as separate rooms. So that's kind of opens up some discretion about when you say a great room is actually like 2 rooms. Oftentimes, the kitchen will have a counter that comes out,
But it may not.
but it may not, right?
And, you know, like in my house, there's a big front to back living room, and there's a little wall that comes in about a foot from each side that separates it into like a living room and a den. That's considered 2 rooms.
Right.
You know, if you didn't have that little 1-foot
You could argue.
wall, then you could argue that it's all just 1 room. So you could conceivably have a house that has a great room, a kitchen, a dining room, a living room, with flat walls, just demarcated by the furniture,
Yes.
and that's 1 room. So you could have a great room and 4 bedrooms, and it would only be a 5-room house by this definition. So I would think you could put another line in there that says, in exceptional circumstances, you know, the board could determine that even without the physical demarcation, a room serves the function of more than 1 room, and therefore will be counted as more than 1 room.
Or you reference a square footage exceedance.
yes.
That requires, if a room is sized greater than X square feet, it will be counted as a multiple room.
Yes.
In other words, some wording that references that.
Yes, we can look into that.
As a trigger.
Yeah,
Yeah, you could have a 500 square foot room,
Yes.
you know, with a sink and a
At one end,
stove,
right.
and then a dining room table, and then living room
Fireplace at the
furniture,
other end,
and it's
right.
1 room.
Right.
Right.
Right, it would be at our discretion. Yeah, I mean, that's a common situation in the great room, you know, it
Yes.
counts as 1 room, but the language where you can do it otherwise, something to talk about. Nantucket is a town that has more specific regulations. They get into square footage in 400 square feet, over 400 square feet. I think it combined with some other things, but then they presume it is 2 bedrooms, certain circumstances, so they do have a square footage thing. But I think, yeah, the great room it's an issue, so
And as soon as you make a regulation,
they designed
then
to
the
it,
architects will design
absolutely.
to minimize the number of bedrooms, you know.
Number of rooms.
To
By
maximize the
doing
number
whatever
of
they need to
bedrooms.
do. If somebody says they want to have a 5-bedroom house, you know, you know, they'll figure out a way to design it, that it fits the letter of the regulation.
but this
What's really nice about this one, I think, is the line that says that the board will utilize whichever method of calculation produces the most bedrooms, either the absolute bedroom count or the total number of rooms divided
And
by 2.
that's in here. That's
And
in
that's
Right,
in
that-
here.
that's a line that Judy added to
Yeah,
clear up the
that-
discrepancy
that
that
really
John brought up.
helps.
'Cause there's 2 separate things. There's the actual bedroom by definition, and then there's just a room,
divided
and
by
the total
2.
number of rooms in the house, and that's another one.
Right.
So you've
But,
got to have a rule breaker, which one takes precedent, and that's what this sentence does.
Yeah,
And I do believe we've been in discussion about striking the heat under a detached structure that serves as and it has the list these three, where it says heat, shower, toilet. I think we might be taking heat out, just because
Summer.
summer rentals, they can
so you're talking
obtain
about
plumbing
a
permits without
a
Board of Health
detached structure.
sign-off, or space heater, stuff like that, yes.
yeah,
There somewhere.
right. Yeah, a detached structure, so it's like a room above a garage that's separate. So this says, if the detached structure lacks any one of the following things, heat, shower, toilet, then it would not qualify as a bedroom. So you could have a detached garage, room above, with heat and a toilet, but no shower, and by this rule, it wouldn't be a bedroom. Is that right?
Yes,
But I think, yeah, that tightening up, that's probably good.
taking, yeah.
I think that's, it's,
I hope before I die, this is done.
but I do think the language is tricky, so we want to do something that really helps and that they just can't easily design around. I mean, how hard is it to remove a half wall or pillar?
Right.
So that's working on the detached structures, the other one. Another, another aspect, and this gets to the room count, not bedroom, room count, and that's a loft. And so a loft accessed by a stairwell less than 5 feet is a separate room regardless of its openness to the room below. I guess, do we count that as a room now? So you walk up the stairs and there's a loft and it's completely open to down below, is that considered
That's-
a room, not a bedroom, a
That,
room?
that's considered a room, but not a bedroom.
Okay, so that goes along with what we're saying. The other thing that I think, other questions or, another thing that jumps out at me, on the first page, bedroom, and it lists the opening door, the 6-foot, thing we have. But criteria to describe the physical attributes of a bedroom. A bedroom has, the last one, a degree of privacy. Now that's how they describe privacy. So the question you make, in my mind, is, okay, what does that mean? Because we see a room, you walk up a flight of stairs, there's a banister, and you go in, and we'll say, well, there's no privacy, because the staircase and the banister's there, so it doesn't have privacy, so it's not a bedroom. We've said that, I think, on a plan.
Right, but
But I think
a
that's,
degree of privacy is
gives
different
us,
than privacy.
gives us,
So that gives us some leeway. So
Yes.
if we say that there's a room over the garage, and there's a stairway that goes up there, and you can only get to that by going down a hall and going up that stairway. Even though there's not a door, even
still
though
private.
it still offers a degree of privacy.
It's off the beaten path.
now, would that be a change from what we do now?
Yeah, it's,
Tightening up on the.
yeah, it's tightening it up a little bit. We look at that now, but
But I think
this
that's,
is giving us
that
a
would give
little
us
more.
discretion, and then
Yeah.
we just have to be, we would have to, if we start doing what Dick's talking about, be consistent.
We can't be arbitrary.
And set a precedent and be
Gotta
consistent.
say, it's at least
and
30
whatnot.
feet from the nearest, and then in that case, we're gonna say it has privacy.
Yeah.
But, all right, it's a slippery slope, but once we start refereeing those, we've gotta be consistent.
Right. Now, the other thing that's here, when talking about other rooms, the second page, the back of the first page, other rooms on the bottom. An other room would be any room within a residential dwelling other than a bedroom. Or maybe that's not, it's, when it's talking about basements. And she has the asterisk here, which goes back to, yeah, here. Bathrooms, closets, hallways, foyers, mudrooms, unfinished attics, and unfinished basements are not counted as other rooms. But it says an unfinished basement means, an unfinished means no drywall, no finished flooring, no rough plumbing, no electrical. Then it's not a room. So if you have a basement that's drywalled in, it's a room. Do we do that now?
So we haven't, no, just because people, when they were building houses, part of the way they would get around it is they would submit it as unfinished storage. They would have drywall. You don't need building permits to finish the flooring. So they would go finish the flooring. The plumbing would be roughed in. We don't sign off on plumbing permits. They'd get plumbing permits, and then it's a bedroom. So this is getting around that, because now with unfinished,
Right.
or unfinished room, they need these permits, which we will sign
We're not
off
talking
on.
about bedrooms, because the basement, then you need egress and windows and all that.
Yes.
But this is just a room.
Yes,
So if you have a basement and it's got drywall, it counts as a room,
yes.
according to this, which is stricter and probably reasonable. And, I mean, I think what Judy says, that they'll sometimes, put in, I'm speculating here, drywall, and there'll be some rough plumbing behind it, and the electric will be there, so they can come in later and kind of do the whole thing, and it's all pre-planned.
Right.
That may be,
That's the biggest
Unfair.
one we're seeing with unfinished rooms.
you are seeing it.
We have seen
I've
it,
seen it,
yes.
right, so that's real. So I think that is a good change. So,
So that would be a room in terms of the total room count.
Correct.
yeah, that would work to the room, and then the presumed bedrooms, and if the presumed bedroom is, you have a 4-bedroom septic, but the presumed room count comes out 5, doesn't mean you get an extra bedroom, it means that your house is presumed to be too big for that septic. So I think there's a lot of things in here that are a big help. And it's templated off this Hingham thing. The other one to look at, though, if you're looking, I think, is Nantucket. I think Nantucket's had some very strict rules, and,
I'll take a look at that.
so, and then we have to find out how this is done, but I'm guessing that it'll wind up being a change of the regulation, which will go through a public hearing and all that, be in the paper and all that kind of thing. And my feeling is that it's worth, I don't want to do the Mill Hill thing, but it's worth taking some time to get some good language in there that really helps us, that can't easily be worked around. And I know Nantucket's been dealing with this, because they have a problem that's much worse than ours in terms of building and
Oh, yeah.
grounding and stuff.
Well, we're making progress. I mean, if you look
Oh,
at
yeah.
the total number of variance requests for additional bedrooms from 2 years ago versus now, it's fallen off a cliff.
Yeah.
We used to do 2 or 3
Right.
additional bedroom variance requests at almost every meeting.
Yep.
Right, a lot of it was, if you put an IA, you automatically got an extra bedroom, no matter how many bedrooms you already had.
Right.
That was a big change. Do you think that's,
Oh, yeah.
the decrease is because of our changes?
I do.
It's
Yeah.
definitely a little bit of both,
Right.
in my opinion.
Okay, so that's good. I think, so you can taking copious notes and communicate all of this to Judy.
Yeah, yeah.
And we'll talk about it again when she's here and follow up. Any input from the public? And any other comments from the board? But it's tough. I mean, the other thing I haven't done is go back to the current nitrogen loading regulation and see what that actually says about bedrooms. But I think what's gonna happen is you just toss that whole part out and put this in as the thing. Okay. Other comments or questions or? No. Okay, that's 4. And so then, next, we have any public comments, future agenda items request. So I'm assuming that the bedroom thing will come back. We did the letter, we did the registration, so that's the one. And then we have the other outstanding things. We have let in the airport,
Mill Hill?
and this Mill Hill. Mill Hill is a town-wide effort involving legal counsel, and Mr. Berman is kind of our representative there. That's,
No updates for today.
I haven't had a recent update, no, but they're working on it. And I think Mr. Berman is, he's representing us, and he's trying to push it, as best he can. But,
Right.
so, I think there's, I think there's a.
Remember the commercial, any day now.
Solid effort.
Okay.
Well, it started perhaps decades before we got involved. And don't forget remember how we got involved?
Yep,
The town attorney
select
came and
board.
told us the easy way to get this done would be if the Board of Health handled it as a public nuisance instead of the Select Board, which is the licensing authority for junkyards, didn't handle it. And we said, okay. And now, it turns out it was pretty hard. Anyway,
Any day.
Are we
Any
gonna
future,
discuss,
agenda items?
Short-term rental, the penalty for not complying at a future
Yes.
meeting?
okay, then we can make that an agenda thing to talk about,
Penalties
We were
for
gonna ask the attorney,
non-compliance with
what
these.
our options were.
yeah, short-term rental, penalties,
We should just-
And the-
we should
and the
just
legal
review that
aspect.
section and see whether
we
we're
can do
comfortable
that.
with it as
Yeah.
it's written or not.
okay, other,
What about PFAS in the wells? Have any updates on that? We've not seen any reports.
I don't have any updates today.
I think,
I think they've been negative.
I think it's non-detect, I believe.
well, we could have, I think Tom Barr handles the water, or Mr. Faley?
I think it's Tom.
Tom, I believe it's
I think it's Tom. We could have him come in and give us an update on the wells. Usually, we have just enough wells to supply the summer water. So if anything happens, wells go down or PFAS or whatever, then it gets to be a problem.
We're in trouble.
But we can ask him to come back just for a quick,
Oh,
update.
and we used to get a report showing the testing,
Yeah, at least if we
Of
can
each
get
well
that,
and
and
what-
if we can get that,
PFAS.
Okay.
right.
There's an
Reading
annual
was.
report that comes out.
Yep.
Now, what's the current classification of the groundwater table? Are we, what,
Are we still
now
in a
this
drought?
summer, as we approach the summer, where are we in terms of water conservation?
we're in water conservation.
We're in.
Yeah,
Well,
Mandatory.
we've declared a mild drought on Cape Cod, and the level of the water in the test well is down slightly from where it was,
A year or two ago.
no, 10 years ago. It's better than it was a couple of years ago. It's getting better, but you keep hearing all these different stories, and what Bob Duncanson used to say is, there's enough water in the aquifer to last us for 200 years.
It's infrastructure.
And the problem is, we don't have enough wells
Right.
to pump enough water. The reason we have all these signs up in Chatham now has nothing to do with the level of water in the aquifer.
The quantity of
It's
water.
solely because we only have 2 water tanks.
Yep.
And we only have a number of wells that we have not increased significantly. And then the water department published a decision that they made saying the way to deal with the water shortage is to raise prices on the water. And so that wealthy people can irrigate their lawns with the water or can use as much water as they want, but poor people can't. And they use that decision to make the decision not to try to dig more, to not spend the money to dig more wells. And every year, the population of Chatham keeps going up in the summer.
We
Every
really-
year, we draw more water.
I don't think we should be talking about this. This should be on an
Oh.
agenda item.
Well,
Yeah.
this is what we're.
Yeah, so we'll put it on,
the
yeah,
agenda.
okay, we'll put it on the agenda.
Right.
Yes.
And, okay, good, yeah, that's right.
I'll make a motion,
Any other agenda item requests that come to mind? What else?
Are we gonna move that we discuss the water
Yeah,
situation?
we'll put that on the agenda.
Yeah,
We can just,
it's going
we
on
can
the
just
agenda.
decide.
for a
It's
next
part of our
upcoming.
purview to make
Yes.
sure there's enough water in the town.
I think we need to be refreshed on where we
Processing
are.
plant is finishing sometime soon, probably. Okay,
I'll
yes.
make a motion, we accept the draft minutes of May 19th, 2025.
Okay,
And I'll second.
Just to get it done.
all right, and I'll take a roll call vote. All in favor, say aye when I call your name. Carol Boyce,
Aye.
John Beckley,
Aye.
Ron Broman, Dick Edwards?
Aye.
Noble Hanson, yes. Okay, so those are approved. And then, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move?
And take a voice vote. Carol Boyce,
Yes, second.
Yes.
John Beckley, Ron Brolman,
Yes.
Yes.
Dick Edwards.
Yes.
Don't we have to?
Is this a new policy? Every motion has to
I have heard,
Roll
I've been
call.
told or heard that we are supposed to take roll call votes for all our votes and not,
Not
Not
by
just by-
acclamation.
right.
Not by unanimous.
Because people have to be able to see who's voting what way, you know, if it's unanimous, but I've been told that that's the way we're supposed to do it. Okay, so we are adjourned, and the on-air sign will go off pretty shortly, I think.